As you see the SPY up on your screen on the 2-hour chart, something has finally happened here, and I think we need to talk about it as we get into some technical analysis for the SPY Qs and a bunch of other stocks that we're going to look into. I don't really want to shout out the whole list, but you can see that list on the right side of your screen. Going to get into some things with AMC and GME as well. GME is something very interesting there, actually. So we're going to pay attention to a lot of things going forward, but we're always aware that there are still risks looming out there, and if we do turn down for whatever reason, hey, watch out for that daily. Right now, I think we need to talk about this 2-hour chart and talk about what's going on as the most probable thing for tomorrow. Let's get into it. First of all, the 2-hour chart has confirmed up, so we have to talk about the bullish thing first, and this really makes it a lot better. When you did see that 30-minute pulling down and able to curl back up, when you take back the 5, it does make things a little bit more clear. And from this standpoint, we can say that it is very clear that the 2-hour is crossing up into positive territory, and we are likely to see that continue. That is the first thing I wanted to point out. But just because something is likely to continue doesn't mean there aren't risks out there, and we're going to talk about this later on as we get into the volatility charts, which they might be wiping out those signals towards the end of the day, right? We put out a little warning just on Patreon saying, hey, this is just the only thing I see. I don't see anything really to be worried about from the dollar. Don't see anything really to be worried about from those yields. But we do see this small signal from volatility just to be aware of in case we need to react at the end of the day, in case there's some kind of sell-off. There was no sell-off, which is just pretty awesome to see. Now you do notice the 2 hours curled up, so we do have a daily expected move for you, 608.87 to the upside and 599.57 to the downside. So if we are going to see that extended move, hey, wouldn't it be nice? I mean, look where that's really lining up to. Wouldn't it be nice to get here and then experience a small pullback and then curl up to the upside? And you'll notice that if you really just take these levels pretty evenly here and you create this left, this head, you react up to here, you get a pullback for a couple of days, and then you turn back up, hey, you might have yourself a head and shoulders here. So that's what I'd be paying attention to the bullish side. Now, this is great that the 2-hour has turned up, because that means the 30-minute is able to go decently positive, which means we can really, according to our daily expected moves, and we're not pricing in some major volatility at this moment. We still want to be aware of surprises, right? We're going to talk about volatility later. But on this 30-minute chart, you're pretty damn positive now. So you failed to cross down, and that was great. That was a great thing from today. Or actually, I believe, yeah, it was today. It was this morning. But what we're aware of now is if we're going to get pullbacks within this overall move, or if this move is going to fail, we could still see that 30-minute cross down and see that cross through and go into negative territory, maybe see something crazy. But right now, as the 2 hours curled up, that does not seem like the most probable thing. A more probable thing for bearish type moves would more so be, hey, does this see a pullback to retest something? Hey, do we go back and retest that 600 level again? So the only thing I would be worried about is something a little bit, I would say, not being talked about right now happening, or some kind of tariff scare or something like that. And maybe that is why volatility is showing a certain signal. But the SPY is overall saying that this positivity is most likely to continue. And you do have things like the dollar backing off, the 10-year yield backing off at the same time. So as of right now, the more probable thing is the bullish case, but we're aware that we could see a pullback. We're aware that this could fail, and that's all we really have to pay attention to for the SPY. The Qs on the 30-minute looking even better. Now, the Qs had already curled up on the 2-hour and took back the 5, so that's fantastic. You get a test of the 5 and you turn back up, right? We even curled down for a moment and curled back up, so kind of nice, actually, kind of nice. And we were always talking about how we don't really like this. We want to see some kind of breakout moment, and there's that moment right there. Very, very nice, actually, for that to get that little moment there. But we'll notice that we are overall in a state where the buying hasn't really looked fantastic if you really look at it. So we'll just be aware if that needs to keep pulling back to go higher, or if that's going to fail in some way and cross down, right? If this never curls back up, well, then you're probably going to continue to drop on the 30-minute. But this doesn't seem like the most likely case. And we mentioned this about the Qs in last night's video. We were mentioning the fact that, hey, the most likely thing is you're probably going to go to a daily expected move in the next couple, or end up at the weekly expected move this week, because we are noticing the 2-hour curl up. We are seeing that positivity continued. We didn't see that failure as of today, so that's fantastic. So all this looks good, and as long as it remains good, then we can go tag higher levels. Now, you will run your head into this pretty soon. So I would be keeping my eye on it, right? Keeping my eye on this. The fact that, hey, if we see that positivity and then that starts to curl back down, if the 2 hour curls down, you're right by the center line. So you don't want to see a 2 hour cross down. You want to see like a brief 30-minute pullback in the morning, and then it just curls up into positive territory. And that's where we can pay attention to 533.42 to the upside. If we get that continuation and break through, maybe retest later on, or the other side, which is 520.28 for the Qs, and that would overall be a brief 30-minute pullback in my opinion. If the 2 hour crosses, I would be a little bit more worried about it, but always good to pay attention to what's happening towards the end of the day, not necessarily the morning. The daily scale here was able to get rid of the cross down of the MACD here for the Qs, which is a great thing. It means we are still in maybe a consolidative phase of some sort, and then we can see which way this thing wants to break. But for the most part, you're seeing almost you are seeing every single indicator is saying positivity should continue from here. Some scenarios like this even invite a gap, especially around earnings and data time. So we'll get initial jobless claims in the morning. If people see that as good, or they see an earnings as good, we could experience a gap up. But because there's earnings and data, we want to be making sure to just point out how to manage my risk if something starts to go wrong, right? If the 30-minute or 2 hour, I would say 2 hour crosses down, you got to treat it seriously. 30-minute cross down, you might treat it seriously, but just know that you might be getting right back in after a test of that daily expected move. IWM, I did want to shout out for a moment. If we're going to get that 30-minute pullback, this would be a great place to do it. So let's just be open to 30-minute pullbacks, because this would look fantastic. Remember when we drew this up, we're like, this looks like a fantastic left shoulder, doesn't it? So if this fails in some way, we're going to be looking for that type of structure, right? So we do have an area that is held as resistance over and over and over again in recent times, and pretty much in the past it's been support. We've broken through that level and things like that. We've flushed through that level. It's more of a zone in this area, but I just want to point out that the 2 hour is not overbought. This can just break through right now, but something that would be good for IWM is to kind of coil up, give that right shoulder. That would be very nice for IWM, and I just wanted to point that out by showing the 30-minute well into positive territory, a little bit overbought readings for a bit of time there, so a retest of the 5 or something like this to then curl back up can be all you need, right? Grab some liquidity down in these areas, and then you're able to see that upside move. So that's just something I'm paying attention to for IWM. And funny enough, we're looking for a similar thing from Apple, and Apple could say like, hey, I've made that right shoulder right now. Based on this, you're looking at a low and a higher low on your 30 minutes. So if we're able to take back, and this isn't like a sure thing, right? These things fail all the time. This is not the best like buying that you could see for Apple at this moment. So just be open to, hey, this could reject from the 5. But the bullish thing would be do something like this and then take back the 5 very strongly and see that continue to the upside. So I would really just be watching this and saying, hey, if the 30-minute cross down is really close to negative territory still, and then we're looking for, hey, can that 2 hour make that move higher? And the 2 hour has not confirmed that for Apple yet. So if this wants to be more complex or just a failure and fall down, hey, we'll be watching for it. But if the 2 hour confirms like this, then Apple might be making the next move higher to try to break through 236.36. Then maybe we can see some upside with this left head and possible right shoulder forming here. Tesla, I think, needs to see some positivity right away tomorrow. I think it needs to see that positivity right away because you still have this looming head and shoulders. And the only thing that we were talking about to save it was, what if you make a 2 hour divergence here? And then we saw this type of price action. We go, you can make a 30-minute divergence first. And you have all of that happening right now, right? We really watched this one and made our scenarios very, very well here. And they're all right in front of us. The only problem is you have not seen that confirmation. And you're starting to see the MACD get to levels where it's about to potentially violate the divergence that is created because it's pretty flat, but you do see how upward that is on your RSI overall. So take it with a grain of salt, but we can notice that the 2 hour, if that crossed up, that'd be good. That'd be for the daily to go experience the next big positive move. And you're noticing bigger swings turn into smaller swings, turn into the smallest swings, and then that's where a big move will happen in one direction. So for that 2 hour to confirm up so that we can possibly see the daily move, we go into our 30-minute charts, and this is exactly what we were talking about, rejection from the 5 that leads to a 30-minute divergence, and not even that has confirmed yet. But if you see a nice positive bar like this, and then that says, hey, yeah, I'm confirming the divergence, might mean, hey, there's something good happening here. Then the 2 hour confirms and takes back the 5, and it might mean, hey, more good things are happening here. Then you see that continued positivity and the daily chart crosses up. you have yourself the next uptrend move for Tesla, as that is still overall really close to going into that next uptrend move right by the center line for the daily chart. So I just be keeping my eye on it. But if these things start to fail, just know we're building up, we're building up, we're building up, right? You can see this from the Bollinger Bands. They're loose, they're getting tighter and tighter. So something could happen very, very soon for Tesla. And I think this needs to see positivity right away tomorrow to be bullish. Amazon, you already know a lot of the things. If you want more analysis on Amazon, you can go back to yesterday's video. We're not going to do a ton of it because it has that E there. I mean, you can see the reversal signals, the momentum's weak, but if they just say even a bad thing, but a good thing in the call, this thing could go up. So right now your signals are saying that Amazon should fall, but that can kind of be taken out, right? Technicals are not the best thing around earnings time because it is a very random, it's a, you know when it's coming out, but whatever they're going to say is technically random. We can get all the estimates in the world, but there's very rarely do you see an estimate get it exactly right. So I would just be, watching Amazon, but not, I mean, I'm just staying away from it for this week, even though the setup looks pretty good. If that E wasn't there, I'd already probably be taking this bad boy for some downside, but anything can happen with earnings. So let's just pop over to Nvidia. A lot of people ask me about Nvidia. First of all, the first thing is daily chart. Be aware of the positioning here because this could see an upward move and reject and fall right back down. So just so you're aware of that. But we were pointing out that if this wanted to fall, because we have not taken back the 5 yet, watch for the very quick 2-hour divergence. We made the very quick 2-hour divergence and we confirmed that right here. We took back the 5 right here and now we're at that 125. So we're getting a test of 125. That's kind of a big deal. So this says that that daily chart can see the next move higher. This is overall how this thing would build to the upside. But the 2 hour is still negative. So if that would rotate down for whatever reason, you have to treat it very seriously, like it can take out this low, maybe even go make a new one. As we look at the 30-minute chart, we just noticed that's pretty damn positive, right? It's pretty good as of now. And we're actually taking back the 5, which is much different than over here. So we're at a great area. I would like us to react up a little bit higher, maybe to 127.74, where that resistance came in, one of our lines that we kept on here. And then maybe we see if that backs off for a split second as that goes overbought, and then we see that pullback retest of the 5. And if all stays well and that curls back up, hey, Nvidia might be crossing up a daily chart to the upside soon, which would be very interesting. Meta, once again, showing all of the divergences, right? This is why this is very difficult to short. I know it's hitting weekly expected moves, but we could see one more flash move up. It could see something crazy. We could see another move up like this and then cross back down because that would actually be outside of a weekly expected move. But just so you know, like you have monthly expected moves a little bit higher up than this. So it would make sense for if Meta wanted to go reach up a little bit higher. But the reason that we're talking about this is just like, is this a great opportunity to go long right now? Most likely not. You're seeing this right at the edge of the Bollinger. You're seeing this at the potentially the second highest that the MACD's ever been, like ever. So you can kind of pay attention to what happened in the past and just be like, okay, so if this is going to happen like the past and this is going to not even leak down right now, we could see this remain at higher prices for a long period of time. But once that divergence on the daily does pop up, something ugly, really ugly does end up happening. So you see that how it is kind of risky to assume that one of these upward moments is going to come when it could just be, oh, this is just going to drop by 20% in a matter of a couple of weeks soon. So I'd just be a little bit careful with Meta. I do not think it is a great opportunity right now, but I do think that it could potentially be an opportunity later on. Seems a little bit difficult to short at the moment for Meta. You just notice the 2-hour chart. What I'm really looking for here is just, does the 2-hour actually give up some ground here and then curl up? Does it give up some ground, then curl up? This is the one stock that doesn't have earnings in front of it, but the way that it is moving is making me a little bit worried about the general market in general, just because it's like, are people going to rotate out of Meta and into those semiconductors, or is Meta going to drop and everything else is going to drop with it? So it's just something to point out here, but Meta, I think patience is the best thing to do with this one. Microsoft was able to on a 2-hour chart. That's a good start, but you just noticed that the last time we curled up on that 2-hour chart, you saw a good run, but that ended up going back down, giving us 30-minute divergence, giving us 2-hour divergence with these two lows. So if this is going to behave a little bit more similar to that, then we might actually see a divergence in the future. So that's just something I'd be aware of. But as of right now, it looks like you're going to see that 2-hour move. Remember, if the 2-hour does cross back down, then that is very likely that you're going to test the lows if that's quick. If it's in negative territory, just test the lows, go make a new one. But if that can see a good extended move over time, then you would be looking for those higher lows. So that's something I just watch out for. You did have a signal that said, hey, the 2-hour could cross up here, and that was all the rejection of, I mean, look at all the rejection divergence here for the 30-minute. There's only one problem here. This rejection divergence isn't leading to any positivity. This is why I don't like rejection divergence as much too. It's just another point here. We're overall pulling back sideways, which means we're just now reacting to the 5. So if that 30-minute crosses down, you can see lower prices for Microsoft, and I just want you to be aware of that. Okay, so take this with a grain of salt. You do have the 30-minute divergences all across this, but it's kind of like meta. It's going to be almost hard to catch the bounce because this could just end up keep squeezing down. So a little bit rough here for Microsoft at the moment. Do I think it's the most clear opportunity in the world? Not necessarily, but I would say if it curls up on this daily chart, there is daily divergence at this point. So if that daily curls up, you might see this thing get to higher prices pretty quick, as you see this on your MACD, as you see this on your RSI. So just keep it in mind. Always paying attention to risk in the scenario that we're in now. We are seeing that still the dollar to this point has held that potential major top signal. So you just want to keep trading, right? I want to keep trading. I want to keep trading. I want to keep trading. But I'm also going to make myself very aware of the risks that are out there. Right now, it doesn't look like a ton of risk. But if I start to see confirmations down, that's going to be where I would need to react. AMC, ultimately, we're looking for that daily to curl up. You did not get that, but you did confirm the divergence here, which is very, very nice. It is nice to see at least some kind of positivity from AMC, but you just noticed that failed to go positive at this moment. So if that curls back down, you gotta expect lower prices. And there's something interesting to talk about with GME, so when we get to that. I did I just had some fun, and I was like, I'm gonna go vet some of these GME streamers, and one of them started to say that, AMC is actually not $3, it is actually $0. And I just, simply pointed out, and maybe this was a bad thing to do on someone's live stream with a few hundred people watching. I was just like, hey, just so you know, that's kind of a silly thing to say. Something that you're going to pay $3 for is actually $0. He's like, it's down 99%, so it's $0. I go, it's not $0, it's $3. And I'm like, if you take that mentality back to 2020 to 2021, back in 2020, right before the squeeze, you actually saw, at least at the readings that we get now, we see GME actually at potentially 64 cents back in the day. So if you go look at the charts now, you might have said, hey, people could be convinced that 64 cents is $0. And that's not the case. It ended up running to hundreds of dollars. So I just wanted to point that out. It was kind of something fun, and I made a whole chat lose their absolute minds, and I had grown adults, hundreds of them, trying to tell me how 3 equals 0. And I was just like, basic mathematics don't work there. But that's just a fun little thing. I just had some fun with it today. 2-hour divergence, that's great. This is known to curl up daily charts. Is that already going wrong? Well, you've already experienced a 30-minute curling down, and you weren't necessarily the most positive. So for GME to see more positivity, you really need this thing to continue to get those tests of the 5, right? Tests of the 5, but you need those to produce positivity. GME, this one is very interesting because we always talk about this, right? We always talk about this 2866 for this week. We update this level every single Sunday. I think that's perfectly fine, right? We put it out there. We say, hey, this is the level where we can see something crazy. And that's the truth. That is the truth. But there is a level that is exactly opposite of that. And do you know where GME is at right now? It is at the opposite of this. This means you could see crazy things to the downside. But the weird part for me is you're seeing 30-minute divergence start to pop up. I'm wondering if some positivity comes in. Remember, implied volatility for this month for GME, excuse me, is very, very low. Very, very low. And we're hitting a weekly expected move, which means the options market is not expecting GME to go lower than this price right here for the week. So this tells me one thing. something surprising could happen here, and that would be very, very good. But if I see this signal confirm, it might be one I treat very seriously, because that means some kind of run could happen. Now, you would have to see prolonged positivity. You'd have to react all the way up to like $29, then see that pull back to actually have potentially good structure to head up. But I just wanted to make you aware of it. I thought it was super interesting. As of right now as well, the 2-hour is losing that 2-hour signal. So this is not good for GME. This is why I said this is something very speculative. It's still there. It's a reversal signal. It hasn't confirmed. But you just notice once you start to lose those points of divergence, things get a little ugly a lot of the time. So we're just looking for, can this take back to 5? Can we get the daily, the 2-hour, and the 30-minute positive at the same time? You have none of that right now for GME. So the thing that you should expect right now until something changes, right? If nothing changes tomorrow, we don't see any buyers step in tomorrow, no big buys step in, no reversal signal proves, well, then you should see more downside for GME, and that's just unfortunate. VIX absolutely dropping off a cliff, right? The first thing we said was, if we cross on a 2-hour, you gotta treat that like, hey, there could be some positivity. Now, we were pointing out that 1683, we could get a little pop from there, and then we'd watch out for the divergence. So we're watching out for the divergence that was created today. We almost got that to confirm, but almost confirming isn't good enough, right? It continues to drop to lower levels. We're actually violating almost all. I think we've pretty much violated all of the divergence points at this moment. So we're looking there just flat on this point right here, which isn't even the point you really want to pay attention to. So this would overall suggest, like, yeah, I guess volatility can come in at any moment, but that should be lackluster and should be able to shake that off in the market. So that's something we'll pay attention to, unless something really, really bad happens and you're able to curl up the daily chart still. I mean, just look how that's closing. It looks really, really bad as of right now for volatility, which means good things for the overall market. And this is why you have to be potentially aware of gap ups happening, maybe even going into tomorrow. So if this does cross down, I think we're probably beelining at that point for 1212, unless we're able to catch ourselves somewhere around 1504 and see that reaction intraday or quickly after. Once you start to break through 1504 and see those strong closing bars below there, yeah, you're kind of a straight shot to go back down to 1212, which means kind of interesting things. It means we're about to maybe go into a period where people get very overly bullish right as we approach March, which is another moment we were paying attention to for a major top. So that's pretty nice, but this is all leading to mostly bullish signals across the board, just so you are aware. And the 30-minute, I just want to pay attention anytime this thing makes 30-minute divergence, by the way, so that's what I'll be watching there. So what's the main takeaway? Well, the main takeaway is we've actually gotten a good confirmation of that 2-hour, which means that positivity is the most likely option here. And then we're going to be watching for those little pullbacks if we even get one, right? If we even get one. I don't think I saw people getting overly bearish during this run up though, which is very interesting, because if people are thinking short squeeze or this squeezes in some way, that would just be interesting, because we don't necessarily have big orders of puts, new orders at least of puts coming in at this moment. So we'll be paying attention. We'll be paying attention for rejection, but overall positivity is what we expect until something actually changes. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for joining the Patreon, liking the streams, liking the videos, subscribing, doing all that good stuff. I really do appreciate you being a part of this community, and I look forward to streaming tomorrow morning with you, okay? Peace out.